Conversations on Dance is proud to have YUMIKO as a continued partner in 2021. YUMIKO is a company inspired by beauty and standards. As a leader in the dancewear industry, they take great pride in their impact as a socially and environmentally conscious brand. This month, YUMIKO introduced 6 new mesh tones available for all personalized pieces. And as a summer celebration, YUMIKO is offering a special in-store discount to our New York City listeners. Show that you are subscribed to Conversations on Dance at checkout to receive a 10% discount on your in-store purchase. Visit yumiko.com for store hours, and be sure to follow along on Instagram at YUMIKO to stay up to date. Special thanks to the Town of Vail for their support of the Vail Dance Festival and Conversations on Dance live podcast recordings. This episode was recorded at the Manor Vail Lodge.
Take part in the Vail Dance Festival from wherever you are. On Monday, August 9th, 2021, enjoy a live stream of the festival's closing evening now premieres. Featuring world premieres of works created at the festival, including the work discussed in this episode, the full evening will be available to stream on Vail Dance Festival's YouTube channel for a week. Be sure to follow Vail Dance Festival on social media for more information. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Rebecca King-Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Sean Breeden. Rebecca and I are both former dancers with the Miami City Ballet, and we now host the podcast Conversations on Dance. We've been doing these festival forums since the beginning of the festival, and now until the end, we'll be here every morning, just like this one, with different artists each day.
Yeah, so we hope that you will join us for more. And if you've missed any of the earlier ones that we've done, we put all of these out on our podcast feed, which you can find wherever you listen to your podcast or on our website. We also have some cards at the front if you want some more information on how to tune in.
So today we are joined by not one, but 2 of the world's most celebrated dancers, Herman Cornejo of American Ballet Theatre and Tiler Peck of the New York City Ballet. Thank you guys for coming back on.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, Herman, you had a pretty big life event happen since the last time we talked to you. You became a father for the first time. So what has that been like, balancing being a parent with kind of the struggles or adaptations of being an artist during this kind of crazy time?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the birth of my son was the highlight of that crazy year that we still are in a crazy year. So it was amazing, the experience to be a father. At the same time, it was such a different of what I had in my mind. I was supposed to be performing around the world with my family following me and being all together. We were stuck at home. So it was beautiful to see my baby grow like every day. So that was amazing. But at the same time, it was very sad for me to lose, my passion and not be able to be on stage.
Right.
So, Tyler, when performances have been shuttered through this past year and a half, you've found some really creative ways to connect with your audience, one of which is your weekly ballet class, Turn Out with Tyler. What have some of these experiences been like for you to kind of maybe reach this new audience during this time?
I think sometimes, ballerinas or, dancers seem kind of untouchable to people. And I think what's been really nice is to kind of let them in and get to know my personality. And, I'm pretty down to earth, I feel. And I think that that's kind of what people have enjoyed. That I was taking class at my parents' kitchen bar, just like everybody else. During COVID, there's no special treatment. And I just felt like that was a way to keep people moving. And me too. It was something that motivated me to do class every day because I knew people were counting on me. Because on the days where I wouldn't do it, first I did it for 7 days for like the first 7 months.
Yeah, you did so much.
And then I took off a few days and I realized that when I took off from that class, I didn't do class myself. So it was just as much of a gift, I think, to them, but also to me because it helped me get through the pandemic.
Yeah. What was some of the feedback you got? Because I think there were a lot of different age ranges taking with you. And,
and different countries. It was crazy. I had people in Ukraine taking and India. They'd wake up at crazy hours to take class. So that's why I started putting it up so that they could take it whenever they wanted to throughout the day. But, it was young kids that weren't at their studios all the way to like, you know, somebody who looked like a football player who had never danced before, but was like, this is getting me moving and I might not be doing it all right, but I just enjoy getting up and doing something. And some people were like, I haven't danced in 40 years, but I brought my ballet shoes out and it's so nice. And yeah, they even made me a video and like sent it to me, like some of this people that take the class, and my mom and I were watching, we started like crying. It was just,
so sweet.
It really touched people and I had no idea, but I'm happy I could have given them something like that.
Yeah.
Right. So, Herman, you're such a workhorse, and you just love taking on any extra work that you can. I mean, here in Vail, you do like all these stamina busting roles. So you were already saying it was difficult to kind of not have that constant source of artistic, an artistic outlet. So what were some of the ways during the pandemic that you found outside projects that would give you that outlet?
Well, most of the projects that happened, they were films. So it was a very different kind of work. Still had to be in shape, but not with the stamina that it requires to be doing full ballets in front of an audience. And, you know, what I tried to do through that year is also to show people that we go through these hard moments as well. And at one point, I really closed the door of my studio at home. I just couldn't do it anymore at home. And when I had talks with students, I let them know that I felt that way. That it was, and it was also fine to feel that way. That if you needed to stop for a moment, it was fine to stop. You didn't have to keep pushing. So that was a way for me also to meditate with my own anxiety, to be able to share my frustration with others. Yeah, that was the way I kind of compensate, you know, this year. It's
different, but sounds similar to what Tyler is saying. Is like she got to show this side of like, I'm a human being, I'm actually pretty down to earth, and you're saying I'm vulnerable. Was that special for both of you in that way, instead of being these sort of like exalted principles that come out for the page bow, you know? It's like, is that fun to be able to show a more...
It's time to break with that figure of untouchable, like Tyler said. I think we're human beings, and the more we show our human side, the more we'll be connected with everybody.
Yeah, it's that connection. And I think that during the pandemic, we didn't have human connection. So it was like really nice to connect with people that way.
Yeah. Tyler, what were some of the other projects you did, kind of maybe once things started to open up a little bit?
The first thing I did was I put together a performance. I rented out a theater. I hired 11 dancers, and we put together, Christopher Wilden did a new piece. The Syncopated Ladies, who are a tap dancing group, danced, and Little Buck came and we did a Petrushka, something that we created for City Center. And we put on a show. We didn't have an audience, but we filmed it. And then the second part of that was the bar project, which I called Bill Foresight. And I said, look, we've been trying to do something together for 3 years. And whether I got the flu or he got the flu, or I had my neck injury or he had a shoulder injury, we could literally never get together. Like we always had like 4 weeks planned to get together. And so I said, look, why don't we just try to do it now? And he said, when can we start? And I said, whenever you want. He said, tomorrow, with a question mark. And that's literally what we did. And I was with him for like every day, 4 hours for I think 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
And it was so amazing.
Yeah.
When you're putting together a performance like that, how did you deal with some of the COVID safety protocols and decide what was going to be best for the health of the dancers?
We definitely did little bubbles. So, in this case, also, I was finding all of the funding, so it wasn't like we had huge budgets. Right. So actually, the bar project dancers, they flew to Bakersfield, which is my hometown. They quarantined at a hotel, and then they came to my house. And so it was like we had them with us, and we used my mom's dance studio. So we were all together and not seeing anybody else. And so, yeah, some people stayed like a month in Bakersfield, my hometown, with me. So, yeah, it was challenging, but we did it. And, you know, doing it over Zoom, like with Bill he was never with us, not even for the performance. So, but he kind of learned to really love it because he's like, we don't have to deal with any of the organizational people. We just get to do me and you, and we can make our own time and talk about whatever we want. And yeah, so it was just such a lovely process. Like one of the best things in my career for sure.
Yeah. Herman, you were part of one of the performances on the rooftop in New York, right? Was that like Save the Arts? Is that what the performance was?
Yeah. It was, you know, shows to fundraise money for dancers that need help. So it was a good thing to do. Yeah. Not only to be back to the stage, but also to help all the dancers.
Right. Who else was involved with that? And what was that like to kind of all come together under that cause?
Kimberly, who I know for a long time, he put together this idea of this fundraiser. And the best thing of it was to perform in front of the Lincoln Center. Right. So that was, you know, the Lincoln Center, instead of creating a stage for us, they created a plaza for people to relax. So it was fun to perform in front of that and kind of show that we are here. Yeah. So that was a good thing to do. But what stayed with me during those months, it was the work that I did with Twyla Tharp over Zoom.
Tell us about it. Yeah.
Which it was supposed to be a performance, but we could never get together. We had people from Russia. And from Denmark. We were 3 dancers together creating with Twyla over Zoom. And, you know, Twyla, she's 80 years old. So dealing with technology for her was... So we ended up doing a documentary that came out on PBS.
Great. How can people access that if they want to watch it?
I'm pretty sure it's on PBS website.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you have such a long-standing relationship with Twyla. How did this project come about, especially since she was maybe reluctant to delve into the technology side of things?
Yeah. Well, since the pandemic started, we started talking with Twyla to like keep working together. Right. And at one point, of course, it was impossible. The lockdown and everything happened. So she said, technology is not my thing, but let's try. We'll see. I'm going to do this Zoom choreography, and if we can put it together, we will. And if not, it's just a workshop for us to keep moving, to keep inspired. Right. And we worked for maybe 3 months, like on and off with different things. And then this documentary came out.
That's great. So throughout this entire pandemic, we've talked to a lot of dancers throughout different generations. As 2 very seasoned principal dancers, how did this time maybe force you guys to look at your own careers and maybe think about what came next? Tyler?
I think for me, it came at not such an ideal. I mean, I don't think it was ideal for anyone, but I had just come back from a really serious neck injury. So I had already lost a year. And so for me, like, what Herman was saying, where he was like, it was okay to like take a break. For me, it didn't feel like that. Like I didn't feel like I could because I already felt like I missed a year. So I don't know. In a way, it just kind of, I think, taught us all how, you know, life is really precious and, you know, there really isn't that much time in a dancer's career. And, you know, while the time was still ticking, for, you know, time doesn't stop, even though like the world was kind of stopped. And for a career, for a dancer, you know, the time is still ticking too. So I felt like, I don't know, I just love it even more. I appreciate it. And, you know, even when I'm tired, I'm like, oh, I'm tired, but at least I'm dancing. You know, last year I didn't even have anything really to look forward to.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Hey, I was going to do a follow-up.
Please do a follow-up, yes.
Just because you had such a major injury, it was a really hard recovery. But do you feel like maybe the extra time helped you even more recover from that?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Because somehow I did Swan Lake. I don't even know how Marika got me back for that. But, you know, even to this day, like I don't jump in class, which is something that, you know, everybody should be doing. But I just have so many limited like jumps really for my neck to kind of handle. So there's just things that like I'll always have to kind of modify and think about. But yeah, I definitely think, you know, with the herniated disc, like obviously the longer it has to heal, the better. So, you know, I said to Marika, should I be jumping and all? She's like, no. Just like now that you're not performing, just like take it. So I didn't jump for literally the entire pandemic.
Right. Wow. Yeah, it's so interesting because, you know, dancers, you came back and did Swan Lake, and of course, Marika is the greatest physical therapist on the planet. And she says, it's okay. Yeah. But we do often tend to push ourselves to get that thing a little sooner.
Oh, yeah. Like I have videos because every time I would start jumping, my neck would be bad again. Like it was like I would do one little jump and then all of a sudden like it would just be back to square one. So we did this thing where she had a yoga mat. That's how I started to get jumps, and I have videos like of me learning to like do a saute on a yoga mat, and we like kept putting the mat down lower until finally like I was on the floor. And like the day of my Swan Lake show was the day before was the first time I tried the Anashakat passes. Wow. Like I didn't get to practice it. It was just like if I wanted to do it, that was how we timed it. Every day I could do a jump, then rest, do something, then not, and then so she was very clever, but she got me out there.
Herman, same question for you about kind of how you started to look at your career during this time.
Well, for me, it was a very special year. I turned 40, and before the pandemic, I was like, oh my God, I have like another 5 years. Yeah. No doubt. Like I felt amazing. Yeah. And then through the year, I started doubting if I was going to be able to come back to the level I had. Right. Because when you reach a certain level, it's hard for you to imagine being on stage and not doing the same things. Right. Or with the quality that you used to. We have a lot of fixing. Maybe they can fix my back here. Some of those here.
They sound ready and to go. Keep going.
So it was a moment of, rethink of what was next for me. Right. But for some reason, the movement is just the priority. And I started doing things to create shows, to start changing my mind to become a director one day. So I'm in that process of learning how to become a director, but I still feel being on stage is my thing.
Yeah. Right. Do you feel that the extra time and rest, this time of rest, like you're talking about healing, that's not something that's really ever afforded to you guys, right? To actually like take a breath and let your body heal. Do you feel like that was good for you, or maybe like the stopping wasn't so good?
It was worse. I think when I stopped, every pain came out. And also the struggle of finding therapy in those moments. We just couldn't get the therapy that we used to.
The hands-on.
Right.
So,
yeah, that was very tricky too for me because I had seen Marika every single day. Right. And then I went to California for 9 months, and she was even like, this is so weird. Like, I haven't seen you. So we would do like Zoom physical therapy, but it's just not the same.
Right. Not the same.
Yeah.
So both of your companies, first New York City Ballet has undergone a leadership change, and now American Ballet Theatre is looking to that in 2022. How do you feel like as established principals, it's different from, say, if this had happened early in your career when you were both still in the Court of Ballet?
It's challenging. I think for me, I've been 23 years with American Ballet Theatre, so it's hard to think now to have a new director and to adjust to the mentality of this new director. I really wish a new director will come with a more open mind and let artists like us be united. I think New York City Ballet and ABT are too separate, and I find that when we are together, it's so magical. And I wish for directors to see that. That mixing dancers is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Us too, yeah. Yeah.
We always say, can't there be like a little exchange?
Yeah. Well, I think the exchange is in Vail a little bit.
Yeah. We get our 2-week little brigadoon or something.
Yeah. And that's something we wanted to talk about. So what was the first thing the two of you danced together?
Was it Rubies?
Rubies.
Or Apollo.
I'm not sure. I wanted to say Rubies, but it might be Apollo. Rubies is a role that neither of us ever had done. I still have never done it in the New York City Ballet. So Damien was like, we're going to do Rubies for you and Herman here at the Vail Festival. And we did it with a full corps and everything.
So fun.
Yeah.
What was that?
And Apollo was just a part of it.
Yeah.
So what was it like for the two of you to, like you were saying, you've been so separate, and then to come together and dance together that first time?
So easy. I find with Tyler that she does her thing, I do my thing. It's like there's never put me this way, or, I don't know. It's so
it is
smooth. And
I think, too, for me, I always her mom was my favorite dancer to watch. So I think for me in the beginning, I was a little intimidated. Not because he's the kindest person.
Right.
Like he's not scary, but I think I just felt like, oh my God, I'm dancing with Herman Cornejo. So I think the first time I was a little nervous, but our personalities really gel. And I think musically, we have sort of a similar take. So what he's saying, I think a lot of partnering is timing.
Yeah.
And so when somebody's saying, put me here, put me there, I think a lot of times it just depends on if you're in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. And if you're in sync, it just kind of works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I find that in a way we're so different.
Yeah, we are.
We feed from each other. Usually, when I finish my solo, I go into the wings and I just rest.
Yeah.
But with Tyler, I go into the wings and I'm watching.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. That was really
Sweet. Yeah. So anyone who's been at the Vail Dance Festival has seen either one of you, as Damien is often tending to do, cast it in things that are not really in your home rep, that are in the rep across the plaza, if you will. So I'm just asking you for 1 second to imagine, Herman, what if you had spent your whole career at the New York City Ballet, and then Tyler, the flip of that, and you had been able to establish a years-long partnership together? What would that have been like?
Sure.
It's funny for me when, even Isabella and I were talking, and I'm dread doing Sleeping Beauty because we don't do it very often, but I could do theme every day. I'm so excited. And she's like, you're crazy. And I'm like, bull, you're crazy. So sometimes I do wish that I had more of that growing up. So I felt more comfortable in those roles. Because when he did put me in Corsair and Don Q, I was just like, oh my gosh, I do not feel comfortable. It was good because he was pushing me.
Right.
But I do, and I sit there and I watch, the way that they tell stories. Mm-hmm. And that's just not something we focus at New York City Ballet. And I wish that we did more. Mm-hmm. Because just the way they stand in Romeo and Juliet, I was watching the other day, the way they speak, it's like it's innate in them.
Right.
And it's so different from us.
Yeah. I love that you brought up Isabella, because the time I've seen her most nervous was for a 12-minute Justin Peck ballet increases. And, and you're what you're saying is we're like, girl, don't you do full lengths all the time? You're out there for 3 hours. And she's like, this little 12-minute ballet. She's like, oh my God.
Yeah. She's like, Sleeping Beauty is so easy. And I can't, I'm so nervous for this. Who cares solo? I'm like, you got this.
Yeah.
There's something beautiful, something so fresh when you never done those kind of ballets that I love. I love watching Tyler doing the classical pieces. It's just so, even I learn, oh, you could do it that way too. It's, you feed from not knowing exactly what it is. Yeah. So I find it beautiful when you're not used to, and you change. For me now doing Merce Cunningham, it feels great. It's you keep learning.
Yeah. So speaking about learning, I like that you brought that up because I think that that's something that audience members might not think about, that because you guys aren't together very often and dancers really kind of feed off each other, you can kind of use this opportunity to get inspiration from each other. So what are some of the things that you feel like you've taken from your Vail experience in general that you take back to your home company, maybe year after year, maybe one thing in particular?
I take so much peace from here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the mix of artists, it just makes a very magical and peaceful environment.
Right.
That when I go back home, I just take this peaceful and high energy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're in a company for so many years, there's a condensed energy. Mm-hmm. But when you go out and then you come back with fresh energy, it makes things better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I'm such a visual learner. I always have been.
Right.
And so many times in New York, like, I go to watch AVT when I can, but it's like really hard with our schedules. They kind of are the exact opposite. So for me, I just cherish so much getting to like share the stage and watch them. I feel like I learn so much each year, and you know, it's really strange that we only really hang out here in Vail. You know, it's like 2 weeks in the year and then we like don't see each other.
Yeah.
And I find that strange. Even sometimes, like James, I haven't even seen here at Vail, because we're so busy. And I was like, how's that even possible?
Yeah. So we always talk about, obviously there are stamina challenges in Vail, no matter what. When you guys come off, usually you're coming off med season and spring season in New York City Ballet, so these dancers come in shape. But I'm wondering if you had to prepare differently this year after all that time off.
Everything is different.
Yeah, I mean, Justin's is so hard. We, you know, he's not pretending like there was a pandemic. It's like he's just making what he wants to make. And we've had so much fun in the process, I think, right? Yeah. I can tell he's enjoying it so much. And, you know, yesterday Herman was doing his solo, and like me and Justin just kind of looked at each other and we're like, it's just so good. Like, it's like, we know this, but we're just like dying. And so it's just so fun for the three of us to be back in a room together. But I did tell him, like, you know, I was joking at first, like, let's just listen to how much more is after we haven't finished, you know? And he's like, it's just a little bit. It was so long, was it not? And I was like,
It's
okay.
like 3 other variations.
Yeah. And he goes, well, what happens normally in Chai Pa after the turns? And I said, 2 fish dives and an exit.
And then you go home.
Right. Yeah, not 40 more seconds.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, I do feel, because I kept myself going, that I'm in pretty close shape to what I would have done at the ballet.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was just like, Justin, let's just be realistic. Like, this is hard. So yesterday I was like, no matter what my variation looks like, we're going to go into the coda so I can feel what it is. And we almost got through, and then I like fell to the floor, and I was like, okay, yeah, it definitely needs to end.
Yeah. So go ahead. We're talking about the new Justin Peck work that's going to premiere this coming Monday on Now Premieres. So it sounds like it has kind of a very classical structure then. Is it pa, variation, coda?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the coda is like 2 codas. It's not like
double coda.
But yeah, they did their own take on Chai Pa. They like deconstructed it, and Caroline made music. I mean, you'll hear Chai Pa in
Sounds like, but it's not.
Oh yeah, and we do quotes in the choreography.
Really?
Like, yeah.
And so it's in point shoes and the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Wow. Because he's been doing some sneaker ballets in Vail kind of the last time, so it'll be a nice contrast.
This makes me excited because I think Justin's been very focused on Broadway and, like Rebecca said, doing sneaker work, but I love his classical side. You know, Pulcinella Variations is maybe my favorite ballet he's done, which again is this as like virtuoso central for Tyler. And it's very easy in my mind to place Herman in the ballet as well.
Yeah.
So I think if you guys haven't bought tickets yet from this Monday, now I'm even more invested than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's so funny. He's like, in classical pas de deux, Herman, what do they got to put some whip turn in,
And then put some bows after the pas de deux.
Yeah. So there's a lot of collaboration going on. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah. So Tyler, you also will have a new ballet on that program. Tell us a little bit about what audiences can expect from that.
So it's with Caroline Shaw Music. I used her last year in the ballet that I put Herman in. And I just really enjoyed, it seemed to me like when I got in a room with myself, the steps just kind of were easy to create with her music. So I thought, I want to stick with something of hers because I feel like something is just really musical about the way she writes music, and it's interesting to me. So I used 3 gentlemen. Calvin Royal III is the principal with Mira. I don't know if it's Nadon. Is that right? Nadon. Yeah, who's a really young core dancer, but ever since she got in, I said, Damien, you got to bring Mira. I really love her dancing. And then Christopher Grant and Roman Mejia, who are also in the New York City Ballet. So 3 New York City Ballet dancers and 1 AVT dancer. And Mira and Calvin, I don't even think they knew each other before the first rehearsal. So it's been really fun to see them.
Yeah. Mira's very excited for Calvin. She told me. She was like, how did I luck out? Because she's also going to be dancing in a yet to be announced moment with James Whiteside. And she was like, I get to dance with James and Calvin. And how old is she? 19.
I think
20
maybe
now.
She said 20. Yeah. I think I asked her.
So she's very grateful. But it's fun for you to have this. You're kind of entering a new phase where your choreography is really picking up a lot of steam. You have a premiere at Boston Ballet coming up this year. And you have a revival of a work you did at the Vail Dance Festival in 2019. It's your 3rd ballet here. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I keep saying to Damien, I don't know what you're doing by asking. And I do always send him that emoji with the hands over the eyes every time he asks me to do another one. I said, maybe we should the first one went well, let's just let it be. But I'm grateful to him for pushing me, because if I would never have tried it if it wasn't for being here and with Heather and Damien kind of helping look over it.
But now that Boston is on the docket as well, is this meaning that it's something you're going to explore outside of Vail a little bit more?
I love it, but it is so hard to dance at the level I need to dance at and choreograph. I really feel like sometimes that's why there's not so many female choreographers, especially if they're dancers. It's just really hard. Here I'm dancing 10 till 7 every day, and it's doing Chai Pot and Justin's ballet. But before that, I could be sitting in a room for an hour and a half, looking at my ballet from last year that's going, and then putting together my new ballet, and then putting the pointe shoes on. It's just, that's not super realistic. But so I don't know. I feel like I do love it, but I definitely love dancing more right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of Chai Pa, Tyler has a rehearsal in 5 minutes. So we actually wanted to open the floor to questions for the audience a little bit earlier than normal today.
So we watched the Petrushka online. It was wonderful. And it seems to me that the whole pandemic shoved forward the art of filming dance, which used to be very static. But I was wondering, from your perspective, you're putting something on a stage that would normally be for an audience. How was it different to create a work for film?
Well, that work in particular was created for stage. So we did it the same way. However, the filmographer was a former dancer. And when you have a former dancer who understands the choreography, that was the same. He was the same for that as for the bar project. And, instead of it just being a frontal thing for Petrushka, they really got creative with how they could do it. And, that was what Bill said. Bill was like, oh my gosh, I only want to work with Devin because he became the 3rd dancer. It was he was literally learning the choreography and moving around. And actually, there's a solo in the bar project where he's on Steadicam that's not even in, there's a Bill Forsythe solo for me that's not even in the bar project that just exists. But I do think that when it is for film, a lot of things get lost. And so you have to be creative with the filming of it to make it still pop out, because otherwise it's like, oh, we're just watching another thing from the front. And I don't know, I feel like in the beginning it was really exciting, but after a while I think it got a little difficult to just constantly be watching like filmed performances. So try to get creative with that.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you adjust to the altitude when you come here to do these really hard dancing.
Day by day. One of the hardest things is to push when you're tired and still be safe of not getting injured. But it's just day by day.
Yeah, this year, I always feel like on the third day, I feel a little better. But this year we got here and I had dances, which is an hour ballet the next day. So I didn't even have time to figure out if I was ready for the altitude. But we had been in Jackson Hole before, which is already. So I think that actually really helped this year.
Yeah. Any other questions? Right here.
Yeah.
Excuse me. How do you manage your muscle mass to have the strength to do what you do, given the pressures to be very thin?
I don't know. I've never been like the thinnest of ballerinas. That's just not my like body. No, but seriously, they're like thin, and that's just never been me. But I've always kind of ate what I wanted in moderation, and I feel like I kind of need the fuel and stuff to do the rep that I do. My rep is so hard. I don't ever have anything easy, honestly. Like we saw two dancers like leaving yesterday. They're like, oh, we're going into town. And I was just like, I don't think I've ever gotten to really enjoy that. I normally go home and sit in an Epsom salt bath. And I'm like, okay, got to do, 32 pointes or something tomorrow. So I don't really know. For me, it's just dancing that shapes. I don't do anything extra. If anything, I do Pilates, which is for me, I need to stretch, not strengthen. I've always had like a strong core, and that's just how my muscles are. So, but for me, I don't think there's anything better than just like the actual doing of ballet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we're the same. For me, it's more the stretching aspect to treat my body than exercising. I think 7 hours a day is enough of exercising. And maybe that's why we also can eat. We eat healthy, but we eat, a lot of food. I love to eat.
We need it.
But we burn those calories.
Yeah. Any other questions? I think did you have one? No? Yes.
Hey.
We're so happy that your neck thing got recovered.
Yeah.
You may be very happy, but the rest of the world is extremely
Thank you. Yeah, it's I didn't talk a lot about it because it was such a hard thing when I was going through it, and it's still something that I'll always there are certain moves that just like aren't in my vocabulary anymore. Like I can never look down or completely up to the sky or whip my head around without using like my body to do those motions. But I would much rather, have to think of that and still be able to dance than not do it at all. So I'm grateful.
Yeah.
You commented a little on this, but it struck me with these new partnerships and doing risky lifts and, throwing yourself into a man's arms and hoping he catches you. And so when you start working with a new partner, do you kind of do some things to establish the confidence that he can actually, take care of you?
Actually, not really. Like, I just trust that Herman can. I mean, now with my neck, if there is something that I see, like if like a hand's going over from the back and I can sense that maybe there would be a danger of it, like hitting my head, like I'll mention that to my partner. Like I'll say, just be aware here, like that can happen. Yeah. So, take care of me. But other than that, I guess it depends on who it is. Like I know he's going to take care of me. If there was somebody else, maybe it would be like, okay, yeah, let's try a few things before we really do it full out.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you can feel that in the moment, like the first step into the studio. You feel the other person and understand right away how it's going to work. I think for some reason when you step into a studio, you're open. And when you're open, you can see through and learn who the other person is.
Right.
Just in that moment. So that trust happens right away.
I feel like one trusting moment that we've kind of been touching on is in Chai Pa when you do the fish dives and you're dancing it and then Justin's work is inspired by it. Does that make an appearance in his work? No. So you don't have to worry about that scary moment then.
No, I just do it 2 other times on Saturday.
Actual work.
With 2 different boys. Yeah.
I have a question for both you guys. You're finally going to get back into your home theaters after Vail Dance Festival. What are you most looking forward to in those first respective seasons? You're like, I haven't looked at the rep yet.
I actually haven't looked at the rep. I do know Opus 19 goes, and I only know because Gonzalo's retiring, and so we've spoken about it. And that was a ballet I didn't think I could do with my neck anymore, but I'm gonna really try to see if it can work so that we can do it together.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to, he's one of my best friends, like outside of the studio. So, I'm looking forward to our last seasons together.
Gonzalo Garcia.
Sorry, Gonzalo Garcia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm doing Giselle, so for me it's exciting to do a full length at the Coke Theater. It's the first time we do a full length.
Right.
On that smaller stage. So I'm curious to see how it would feel having the corps de ballet around you much closer.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Any other audience questions?
No. Oh, one more.
So will you be dancing in the Restart at Lincoln Center program, which sounds really exciting because it's both your companies, Albanelli, Dance Theater of Harlem, and Ballet Hispanico together?
Yeah.
I will not be. I think that New York City Ballet was trying to be very diplomatic with, if you are doing this, then we're going to really try to let other dancers do this. So for me, I'm not.
Yeah, no, me neither. I think for ABT, there are works that have been done in bubbles, and I was not part of the bubbles.
Right.
Yeah, they're trying to be very safe with still the COVID regulations.
Yeah. Bruce.
Tyler, if a Yankees shortstop to watch a Mets game, people would notice. So when you go to watch ABT, do you get comments? Do you get noticed?
You mean in the audience?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think that I'm sure.
That's really nice.
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys all so much for coming out today. We know Tyler has to get to rehearsal. And thank you, too, for sharing your time with us. It was great to chat with you and catch up.
Yeah, thank you to both of you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Special thank you to Tom Boyd for producing this episode.